the restrooms just right out the exit door to the right.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us tonight for our community forum. The focus of the discussion is going to be on the railroad, because we know there are a lot of questions out there. There's been some press, we've seen some trains running, and we just really want to get the truth out there for you of what's going on with the railroad. What we have in terms of presentations, I'm going to do an introduction of some of the things going on in the port, some of the community events and things that we're doing, and then jump into the rail real quick, and then I'm going to turn it over to our rail experts that are here with us this evening. We have the operators from T&W, Clint Nashmead and Matt Doman, and then we also have Leanne Dixon joining us from the Federal Railroad Administration, to give some overviews on safety and other things of that nature. I'd also like to take the opportunity to introduce my Harbor Commissioner, Justin Rare, who's joined us this evening, and also our former Harbor Commissioner, Justin Maris, who's taking the front row here. So, and then Bill Bunder, too, piece of history with the port, who served many years as our former executive director. Of my team again, we have John Demers here, our COO. He'll help answer any questions that you might have as well, and Christina Birdsey. So, without further ado, I think I'll kick things off. So first, what I wanted to mention is that the port was built by the community itself. This is a picture of the Bard family, Richard Bard. And the port is not in the business of getting rich. The port is in the business of enriching the community by having infrastructure on the front end of the supply chain that creates the opportunity to attract business investment, create jobs, and bring opportunity to communities. And our mission and vision statement speaks to that. Our goal is to bring economic and social value to the communities that we serve. And how do we do that? We do that through the transport of goods movement through the port, and the jobs and economic benefits that are associated with trade. So the port actually, just to back up here a little bit too, so the port was built in 1937, and it was built with private money. So it was actually money from citizens of the community that built this port. Then, to get designation as a commercial seaport, the citizens involved in building the port petitioned the state legislature, and so we got designation by the state as a special district in 1970, and that set up our governance body as a special district. Today we have 5 elected harbor commissioners who are elected at large inside what we call our geopolitical boundary, which is the Oxnard Harbor District. It includes the city of Oxnard, the city of Port Hueneme, and some unincorporated parts of Ventura County, which is really Silver Strand, and Hollywood Beach. So that's our geopolitical boundary. But to the very birth of the port, it was private money from the citizens in 1937. So today, flash forward, we are a major economic engine, a $1 billion machine. We moved $9 billion worth of cargo. We touch 10,200 jobs, and we bring $69 million in local and state taxes to the community for vital economic or vital public services. In terms of cargo calls, today we have 3,000 ships calling our port, both serving the domestic and foreign markets. We move about 1.5 million metric tons of cargo. That does not include our liquid bulk fertilizer. Last year we moved 320,000 automobiles. This year we're forecasting 340,000. We moved a lot of what's called project cargo and high and heavy units, and we're handling today in Chiquita mostly 50,000 containers. In terms of some of the revenue sharing agreements that the port has with the city of Port Hueneme, we actually contribute almost to 10% of their budget. We have these revenue sharing agreements where we bring $1.4 million last year to the city in terms of funds for the port. So we really are important to the city's budget and a very strong partner in making sure that they have critical resources. We all know there are some fiscal challenges at the city, so we're certainly very important as a backbone to their budget. In terms of jobs at the city of Port Hueneme, almost 200 people have direct jobs here, and we bring $1.6 million in addition to the $1.4 million in tax revenues to the local community here in Port Hueneme. Broader look throughout the county, we bring $20 million in just local tax revenues to the local communities, And cities like Oxnard, for example, 990 jobs affiliated with the port, and these are direct jobs. So we are being very, very open and transparent about our business retention and our business growth strategies. We recently rolled out our 2020 plan. The elements of the plan were based on 3 years of visioning workshops with our Board of Harbor Commissioners, where we focused in on economic vitality, marketing, environment, innovation and technology, and strategic partnerships at the core of our strategic development. Through this process, we had public hearings, we had charrettes with the community, and workshops to make sure everyone understands and is working with us in developing our strategy for the future and for today. So what does the plan do? One thing it does is it looks out into the future. It looks, say, 20 to 30 years out. But everything happens so fast, particularly in shipping. Vessel sizes are changing. There's so much going on in the world. If you think of the iPhone, how quickly did that come? So we're not going to say necessarily what the port's going to look like in 30 years, because we really just don't know. But we have some ideas by forecasting, looking at the markets, looking at international trades, what's happening in the global economy, what's happening with demographics, where are manufacturing hubs shifting globally, going from China to India to Africa. What does that all mean for international trade? So we're thinking about these things. Cargo may be going from pallets to containers. So how do we make sure that we remain competitive as all these market forces are changing? So what we've done is scenario-based planning. So we're saying, well, if there's a huge shift towards containerization, maybe the port needs to grow in this direction. If the automobile business is going to go skyrocketing, maybe we need to grow this way. So we're looking forward, and our future development may be a hybrid of these different scenarios, but the point here is that we're thinking about the future so that we're ready for it. In terms of what we know now and why we call it our 2020 plan, because there are strategic, prudent investments that the port should be making today to make sure that we remain competitive. So one thing we're doing is we're deepening our harbor. We're going to go to 40 feet. We have $6 million coming from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and the port will keep the rest of the match. And that will be for the feet. Important, because ships are not getting smaller. They're only getting bigger. So it's very important that we deepen our harbor. We've been working on this project since the 1990s, so we're really excited to see it advance and get our port to 40-foot depth. And I have some slides in just a moment that speak to some of the benefits to the community around this deepening initiative. We're also very pleased to announce that we got a $12.3 million TICA grant from the federal government. It comes from the U.S. Department of Transportation. This grant is going to allow us to make structural improvements to our wharf so it can handle deeper water, and it will also allow us to bring the depth of the harbor to 40 feet in front of the berth, because the Corps only dredges the federal channel. So this makes the project whole. We're also pleased to announce that we got $1.7 million from congestion mitigation air quality funds, which comes from the Ventura County Transportation Commission. And we got another $500,000 from the EPA in what's called a diesel emission reduction grant. And we've used this money to make our shoreside power system complete. And the shoreside power system allows us to plug vessels in while they're at berth, so they're not running their diesel auxiliary engines. Instead, they're zero emission while at berth. We are also one of the first ports, I think, if not the first port to get funding from the Economic Development Administration for Public Works project. And the way that we became eligible for this funding is we did a community economic development study. And we did this in partnership with the city of Oxnard and the city of Port Hueneme. And this study now makes those communities also eligible to apply to the EDA for grant funding. So again, a win-win, and I look forward to working with the city so that they can explore these opportunities and get some funding for public works projects. And then we've also leveraged private investment. We have some cold storage facilities on the port. There's a meeting going on right now, actually back at headquarters, looking at how we're going to fill those warehouses back up, bring them online so that we can continue to handle cargo in this part of our port that's been idle for some time now. And we've been working through some trade missions, among other things, to build trade lanes in South America, and I'm very excited for the opportunities to put more of our longshoremen to work with new jobs here at the port. The deepening project that I mentioned has the potential to create as many as 563 new jobs, 28 million in new revenue, 4.6, which would stimulate more tax revenue for the communities. And what's really important is that it will also support beach nourishment. We're going through the engineering now, but we believe the sand is clean, and we're going to be able to bring it around the corner and help with the erosion challenges that are facing our local community. We also just wanted to share with you, we are actively participating with the U.S. Army Corps on the biannual dredge, which was promised to us to restore the beaches here in Port Hueneme. It's equally as important to the port, well, more important to the community, but it's very important to us too, because our revetment wall was not designed to withstand wave action. So when the biannual dredge doesn't occur, it puts the port at risk as well. So we look forward to partnering and working with the community to make sure we get those funds that are promised to us from the federal government for those critical dredging and beach nourishment projects here in our community. And I understand we're doing one in October, am I right, John? Yes, so the next one will be this October. Our deepening project, if all goes according to plan, will piggyback on that, so there'll be even more sand coming around the corner.
We can sell it to Broad Beach.
Environment, one of our visioning priorities here at the port. We have an environmental framework. We have an environmental policy that's been adopted by our Board of Harbor Commission. We have strategic action plans in all these areas, air quality, soil and sediment, energy management, climate change, marine resources, and water quality, to make sure we're being green, to make sure we're being a good neighbor. Some of the highlights from that action plan, I just mentioned the shoreside power. According to Mike Villegas with the Ventura County Air Quality Control District, it's the most significant air improvement quality project in the history of the county. It brings emissions and particulate matter over the life of the project down 92%, NOx down by 98%, and greenhouse gases down by 55%. We also run our fleet of vehicles on alternative fuels, clean fuels. Our cars are hybrids, and our trucks are all running on propane, so we're self-sustaining. And we have a clean truck compliance program with the ARB, the Air Resources Board, for the trucks that enter the port. We have a compliance program that we run. We've also, hopefully it's noticeable for those of you that are in the community, we've just done some significant lighting projects to reduce light pollution and also be more efficient from an energy standpoint. So we're going to be moving forward with another phase of that, and all the high mass lighting will become LED lights. We are at the end of the pipeline, so to speak, for stormwater, so it's very important whatever trickles down through the city streets and comes into our port is clean when it goes out into the harbor. So we have very robust, state-of-the-art stormwater filter systems to ensure we're keeping our marine habitat and our ocean environment clean. We have several community partners. I see Mr. Barber here from San Lucie. We get very engaged with the community because we want community partners important to us. We want to be part of the fabric of the community. I steal this from my marketing director, Will Berg. If you take a bunch of sand and you throw it up in the air, it just drops. If you put it in the sock, you have a much better weapon. We know that we can all be more effective when we're partners and we're working together. So a couple of highlights on what we're doing in terms of these partnerships. We have a memorandum of understanding with the high school department, and we have a class. It runs 10 weeks, and kids come for an hour after school once a week, and they get trained by an expert in the field. So it could be someone from Del Monte, it could be a freight forwarder, it could be a customs official, somebody in the trade that exposes the kids to a career track that they might not otherwise have exposure to. We take the class pretty seriously. It runs 10 weeks, and we have a final exam, and the two kids with a high score get a paid internship with the port. And so we have 2 students with us now. We have a class of 24 kids, so it's been a really excellent program and a way to create ladders of opportunity for our youth. We also, traditionally we support the Hueneme Beach Festival. Since that's not going to happen this year, we've taken those funds and we've diverted them to make sure you still have movies in the park. So the port will be sponsoring this year's movies in the park. We have also, through negotiations with the city, created what we call a community development fund. And if the port profits to a certain margin, we will bring $100,000 to the community for projects of mutual benefit. And I believe, I see City Council here, Mr. Fig, I believe that funding might get programmed this year to lifeguards. I'm not sure how you guys will vote, but I've been asked if it's eligible, and I think that would be a quality project, and we'd be happy to support it. So. We do port tours. We bring students out in numbers to learn what's the gem right in their backyard and how they can become part of that and create opportunity. Kids come out here and they love it. They absolutely love it. We actually even turned it into a science project. We sent them home with a bunch of green bananas and say ripen them. so it's been excellent. I mean, excellent way to bring kids into what we are and what we're doing here. And this is just a number of other things. I think one of the things we've really tried to do is really educate the public at large of what the port's all about. So we have a banana fest, and the godfathers here, Jess Ramirez, had this vision and dream to bring this here and bring the community into the port and celebrate the working waterfront that we have. And so we thought, well, if 2,000 people came, this would be a huge success. Well, we have 10,000 guests come to our port on an annual annual basis, to join us and celebrate the port and the types of trade that goes on here at the port. So it's been an excellent forum. So let's get to the train. One thing about the train that I want to share with you is that there are a lot of benefits to trains overall. There are a lot of regulators and whatnot in California that are pushing freight and goods movement to trains because of reducing truck traffic, because of air quality benefits, because of efficiency. So there's a lot to running trains that makes a lot of sense. I understand if it's in your backyard, you have apprehension, you have concerns and anxiety, but there are overarching benefits to running trains that is becoming more and more attractive. The other thing that the state in California is really pushing for is having locomotives that are environmentally friendly, zero emission. There's a big initiative in MOVE in California to go to near and zero emission vehicles, and that's true for trains as well. How does it work? What is the mechanics of the railroad in terms of contracts and whatnot? Well, the port owns the railway in trust. So meaning we own the tracks, 12 miles of tracks, okay? And there's the picture of the tracks there that you can see the green. We have a contract with Genesee and Wyoming, who serves as the operator of the railroad. So they run the locomotives. G&W has the right at any time to purchase the railway. It's just contractually obligated to them. So if I were, for instance, to say, or the port were, for instance, going to say, oh, we'll go build a bike path. Well, G&W might not like that. It would go ahead and buy the track. So I just want to, I'm trying to inform you of the realities behind the railroad and the mechanics and the legalities of it. As long as the port is involved, whether they own it or we own it, we commit to you to being a friendly neighbor. If trains are running, we'll run them when it makes sense for the community and we get your input. So what's happening on the railroad today? Okay, currently we run 4,000 carloads annually. These are the different commodities, and I'll let G&W share with you the business portfolios that they handle. But basically we serve the automotive industry, New Indy Paper, and Mitsubishi's, and then there's also cargo that runs off of the Navy base. So the rail is very much alive and is handling cargo today. This is a snapshot of how we connect with the Class 1 railroad, Union Pacific, which gives us a very competitive selling point to being an economic engine. A lot of people don't realize this, but Port of Hueneme, because we're in the backyard of LA and Long Beach, we look like the small fry, right? But we're actually, if you look at us through a national lens, we rank in the top 11% of the nation's 270 commercial seaports. So we're actually a medium-sized, big player economic engine. And this railroad infrastructure is important to the health of the port. So we tried to do a walk through time and give some history here on how the railroad came to be. I say this with a caveat that it's still subject to more investigation and research because it's hard to get all of the facts. But here's what we could dig up. In 1889, $2 million was raised by the Los Angeles and Wenini Railroad to build a railroad. In 1905, it became operational up to Oxnard. In 1906, Bard sold the Wenini Wharf to Bakersfield and Ventura Railroad. In 1911, there was a realization that the railroad wouldn't make it out to Bakersfield, so they dropped the name Bakersfield from it, and it's now and it became the Ventura County Railroad. In 1960 is when they built the spur down to the port to support the Vietnam War effort. In the 1960s, we believe the Oxnard Citrus Packing House used the rail for domestic transporting. In 1994, there were some runs for the NYK Pool Warehouse. In 2012 is when G&W acquired it in terms of the operation. And in 2013, we've done a few infrequent runs on the railroad. We had it down for the Banana Fest. And now, in 2016, we have 4 scheduled trains. Those are the facts. Those are the facts. So right now, the only business that's planned for the railroad is 4 trains this fiscal year. We as the port can't interfere with the rights of the railroad to go out and get business, but there are capacity issues here. We'll never be LA and Long Beach. We're not going to have trains running on, long unit trains that interfere with traffic and whatever. We just don't have the capacity. We would look forward to maybe securing business to support project cargo opportunities. There could be opportunity to put the fertilizer product on the railroad, and that would reduce truck traffic. And know that fertilizer product is, again, not flammable or hazardous. So we're looking at opportunities, but I think one of the points we really wanted to make tonight is that the railroad has never been abandoned. It's never been inactive. Nothing has changed. We're running trains on it, but it's always been an active spur. And I just want to be very open and transparent about that because that's the reality. And again, it creates opportunity for jobs. It creates opportunity to bring more business to the port. We want to work with you, the people that are closest to it, to make sure that we minimize any impacts. But the reality is there is a track there. It is it's active, and it's been active since 1960. So with that, I ask that we hold questions to the end. We'll let our other presenters come up and give their PowerPoints, and then we'll open the floor for all your questions.
To clarify, the rest of the presentations are coming, or maybe somebody's going to do this. When you talk about the railway and the railroad versus the spur and how many carloads have run, it's very confusing coming into this new, what that means when we're talking about the South Spur right now.
The South Spur is, I can show you in a map here. The South Spur would be the piece from here to here. This right now is where Indy Paper is, and it's active. It's used regularly.
Where are we?
This here, so you guys are in here, right?
Yes.
And then this here is very active with auto transport, and this is very active with no transport.
Drive 4 feet from our house.
And these folks are here to answer all your
I was
questions too.
going to answer that. How can I answer 4 feet from my house?
Well, let us finish the PowerPoint, and then we'll have this discussion. Okay? So, which one are you? One thing I'd also like to add is Clinton Ashby gets up from GMW is that the prior owner of the railroad was Rail America, and I think that when GMW came on board, they did a stellar job in improving it in terms of landscaping, in terms of painting the trains, in terms of putting some ornate fencing at dangerous parts of the park to avoid children crossing dangerous areas. Miranda Park, we put up some fencing. So Miranda Park, we put some fencing up so that there's a piece of railroad there that it was dangerous for the community to cross it. So they've done some very impressive projects to try and create and to minimize their impact and do some beautification of it. It got noticed. We actually got a rail award for it, so I would like to keep their horn, no pun intended, for that.
Yeah, that's
we
fine.
do.
Just minimize that. I'm not
Yeah.
going to allow it. Come on. Okay, for 15 minutes, both of you.
Thank you, Kristen. My name is Clinton Ashmead, and I'm Vice President of Marketing and Sales for the Mountain West region for Genesee and Wyoming Railroads. So what you see here is our particular logo for this railroad, and I'll talk a little bit more about other railroads that we have, but want to focus obviously on the Ventura County Railroad today. As a company-wide within Genesee and Wyoming and Ventura County Railroad, our core purpose on every single one of our properties is to be, number one, the safest rail provider and the most respected rail provider in the world. And I'll talk about how we have an impact and a footprint, not only in North America, but in other places as well. So a little bit of an overview of our overall company of Genesee and Wyoming. We are a publicly traded company. We own 121 railroads worldwide, and we employ 7,500 people. You can see our list of equipment and our car loads annually. And Genesee and Wyoming is an acquisition company that holds railroads. So Genesee and Wyoming, there is one railroad, and you'll see a map of that. But other than that one Genesee and Wyoming railroad, think of Genesee and Wyoming as the overall parent company of 121 railroads. This is our board of directors from the beginning, back in 1899, so we do have a long history of railroading in our blood and throughout many decades of running very successful, safe operations. This is where that first railroad started, Genesee and Wyoming, in New York State. It served one customer. It was a salt customer, and they are still a customer of ours today. Now a little bit more specific of why we're here today. This is the original area, obviously, where the Bakersfield Ventura County Railroad was mentioned earlier in Kristen's presentation, and it began its operations on July 4th, 1905. So this railroad has been around for a long, long time, and the community has really evolved and grown up around it as well. When you look at railroad history, as the West grew, it was possible because of the railroads. It allowed goods and services to come out west, to build those communities into what they are today, so that they had some economic viability. You've seen this map earlier in the other presentation, so it's a bit repetitive. But we haul about 4,000 carloads. And by the way, there's one empty seat right here, if somebody, and another one over here. Come on over and be comfortable, see the slides if you can't. But there are at least 2 open seats that I'd welcome you to come and sit down on. If there's others, just point them out. So as Kristen mentioned, Genesee and Wyoming acquired the operating rights. We don't own the railroad. The port owns the railroad. We started operating responsibility for this railroad in 2012 as a company. The history since the late 1800s we went into just a little bit, but we are the most current rail owners and operators of this railroad. And Genesee and Wyoming is a company that does a lot of due diligence when it goes and acquires railroads. We acquire a railroad with the intent to own that railroad for a long time. We don't want to be a company that comes in, maybe runs whatever we can to lead that railroad out and then turn around and sell it, trying to maximize whatever opportunity we could at that time. We come into a railroad for the long run, wanting to be there, wanting to stay there, and develop what we do best, and that's run railroads safely. The commodities, as Kristen mentioned, we move a lot of automobiles here in Hueneme and Oxnard. And it's a major gateway for those automobiles to either come in that are domestically made throughout other parts of our country here, or we receive them through the port via vessel, and they're put on rail cars, and they're very effectively and efficiently and safely sent to destination markets. New Indy, paper mill, down on one of these branch lines. They take in recycled paper, and they make a finished brown paper out of that. They're one of our customers that move freight. And by the way, we're a common carrier. We're obligated to move freight. We can't really pick and choose necessarily. If somebody comes to us with an opportunity, our obligation is to move it and to move it safely. And so that is our goal, that's our intent, and we do a very good job doing that. Other customers that we have here, Smuckers. We move their frozen strawberries. It's just beginning to be that season right now where the berries are popping in the fields, and they'll be picked. They'll be brought into the Smuckers facility, frozen, put in drums, put in a refrigerated boxcar, and then they'll go out to the Midwest, and wonderful strawberry jelly and jam is made out of it. We also serve the military area of the port up here for various military operations that go to help defend our country. And at times, those pieces of equipment come back to the port here. So we're very honored to serve our country and our military services in that fashion as well. And then the port also brings in some dimensional products that are vital to the country. They need to get somewhere, and how do you get very, very large pieces of dimensional equipment that are heavy and large that don't move well via the highway? So we will take those pieces on this portion and bring it up, and we interchange with the Union Pacific Railroad in Oxnard up there, which is our gateway to other markets through that railroad. I mentioned we own 121 railroads worldwide. Here's our footprint of where we operate railroads. They are represented by orange lines. Some of them are very small, as we see over here in Ventura County. Our largest railroad, which happens to be in my region here, is the RCP&E Railroad, a railroad that we acquired about 2 years ago at 650 miles. We are also a rail carrier that operates in more states domestically here than any other railroad. So we are a bunch of small, little railroads, but we have a larger footprint in the states versus any other railroad in the country. We also have port operations, and this happens to be one of them as well, where we serve the Port of Hueneme. So wherever you see a blue dot, obviously along coastal or waterways, we have an impact there by serving those ports and giving them rail access for more efficient, safe transportation as well. And then we have switching contracts, which are represented by orange diamonds. And so those are private entities, an industry that a railroad won't, they may serve it, they'll bring freight in or out, but they don't do the switching operations, the moving of cars within that facility. And so there's a need for that. And those companies want to do what they do best. Whatever they make, whatever they produce, that's what they do best. They like for us to come in and then move those rail cars around, and they know that we're going to do it safely and efficiently. We are also a major rail operator within Australia as well. And very barren areas throughout the middle of Australia. So we run through the middle of Australia carrying a lot of minerals and resources out of there to help go into a variety of products throughout the world. And it's, as I mentioned, very desolate out there, where really your only way in is via the railroad or airplane, quite honestly. So we will have team crews that actually sleep on the train, which we don't see here domestically in the United States because we have so many access points to run crews to and from those trains. But we're very well known and respected within the state to help with those resources and economics as well. And then recently, last year, Genesee and Wyoming acquired Freightliner. And you'll notice that that's the only logo that's different from that orange and black round circle that you saw earlier with Ventura County Railroad, and perhaps Genesee and Wyoming logo as well. And the reason why we kept, I don't know why this keeps bouncing back, but the reason why we kept that original logo for Freightliners, because they're very well known in the UK and in other places within Europe, and we want to keep that brand so that people recognize that railroad for the reason why we acquired it. There was potential business potential there, and then also they're very well respected. So we wanted to keep that branding or that logo and carry on Genesee and Wyoming perspectives on running efficient, safe, well-respected railroads. Here within the United States, now we saw a slide of the map where we connect with Union Pacific Railroad here with the Ventura County Railroad. This pie chart shows other connecting railroads that Genesee and Wyoming railroads connect with. So if it were not for our company, there would be 1.7 million carloads of freight that would probably be moving truck, and by the way, the ratio of trucks to a rail car is anywhere from about 3 truckloads to 4 truckloads to 1 rail car. So if we're running, say, a 20-car train, you can do the math, and you're taking that many trucks off of the road, off of the intersections, out of the communities, which are a lot of trucks. Not anti-truck, we need trucks. However, you've got one driver with varied backgrounds, with a train crew, you've got a crew handling all of that freight in one safe, linear manner without very little interaction within the communities or rail crossings or road crossings. But back to my point, 1.7 million carloads, rail cars, times that by 3 to 4, that's truckloads that we interchange to connecting carriers to get products to and from markets very safely, very effectively. So again, what are our core values? We do focus on disciplined growth. And notice the word discipline. We don't grow just for the sake of growing. We don't take on a piece of business just to take on a piece of business at any cost. As a common carrier, again, we are obligated to move freight, but we do have the right to say, that's not safe, we're not going to touch it until this is corrected. And once that safety concern or challenge is addressed and overcome, then we will, by obligation, move that freight. Integrity, it's why we're here. This is not the only slide that's been created for this crowd. We use this in every single one of our presentations. We do it with Wall Street if we need to go out and find money, if we need to get a new customer, or somebody's interested in who we are. This slide is part of our presentation. It doesn't leave our story or our message. We're here today because we want to earn your trust. We want to be responsible, and we want to be respected. We want to deal with our communities. We don't want to hide. We don't want to just say we have rights to do something. We've been doing it since the late 1800s. We're here to say, what are your concerns? We're here to educate you what we can do, what we do, and we want to have that respect to be known, once again, as the safest, most respected rail carrier in the world. And we want to be excellent at it in all that we do. So let's talk about safety, which is number one within our company. I've worked for a large Class 1 railroad before I joined the Genesee and Wyoming team. And as a marketing and sales person, quite honestly, my focus was strictly business. Trying to make profitable, efficient, profitable business. However, since I've joined this company, I'm now part of many safety initiatives. I'm part of those conversations, and I've learned a great deal on how railroads are very safe. I've learned how I can make my job as a marketing and sales representative as safe as it can be for not only myself, but for the customers and communities that we serve. So whenever we see an unsafe act at the bottom of this pyramid of trouble, any unsafe act, we want to recognize it, we want to find it, and we want to address it. Because if we don't, it leads to the next level, or it could leap levels. So if we can tackle anything that we see or that we know that is not safe, we're going to address it, we're going to make corrections so that we can take each and every one of our employees home safely to their families every night, and also to those in the community around us. Here's a chart showing what our safety performance is, and this is within the entire rail industry throughout the world. So it's the same measuring tool that is used with all of the railroads, and it is an injury frequency rate per 200,000 man hours. So when we're a short line company, Ventura County Railroad Company, railway company, we are independent of all of our sister railroads. Matt Doman over here is our general manager. He's the decision maker from every level of this railroad, from business to operations to safety. He's measured on the same frequency and same measuring tool that other short line companies throughout the Americas or throughout the world are measured up against as well. And they don't have the best track record. There are some, they're all lumped together here. So you would find some down below, you'd find some up above, right? And then if we compare ourselves to the big railroads, Union Pacific Railroad, BNSF, those are the two major Class 1 railroads within the West. CSXT, Norfolk Southern, Canadian Pacific, Canadian National. Those are other eastern carriers that are considered Class 1s. We can see their safety record here. They beat us at one time. In 2006, for example, they were ahead of us. As a company, Genesee and Wyoming, all of our railroads averaged together represents the orange line. But I mentioned 2006, and we see a green line. The Ventura County Railroad had one injury in 2006. It was a sprained back with one of our crew members performing a switch operation of aligning the switch in the track, and he sprained his back. So we've got a lot of other stories throughout the rail industry that are much more fatal than that. But our last injury was almost 10 years ago this month, this week. So 10 years we had, that was our last injury. So the green line extends from 2006 to the present. It shows 2015, that's where the measurement ends year by year, so we can give consistent numbers. But if we could, we'd extend that to this day here in 2016. How do we do that? Well, I mentioned that we tackle every unsafe act that we see. And that's what we can control with our employees. But what can we do for those that are driving trucks, school buses, bicycles, pedestrians? We are part of an organization known as Operation Lifesavers. So we have volunteers that the company doesn't pay their hours to perform this volunteer work necessarily. These are volunteers that go out because they want to be part of a company that is well respected because it's safe. And they too, for example, an engineer who runs a train, the last thing they want to do is have an accident at a crossing or somebody that has broken the rules. And that engineer is in the front of that locomotive and has to experience and see an accident which could lead to a fatality. I think just about any railroad operator knows somebody that has a story, right? And they never want to have one personally. So what we do is we go and volunteer our time to go to schools, participate in a driver's ed class, and talk about railroad safety. What it means when a train that may be going on a main line which is quite different than the lines that we see here in Hueneme and in Oxnard. These are branch lines, they're community lines. But when you have a 100-car train, for example, and again, remember that ratio of 100 cars and what that would be in trucks, combined by weight, we want to make sure that it's not a hidden hazard. We want everybody to know that trains can be very safe, they can be very efficient, but you have to follow some rules. And we'll have somebody here after me to talk about what those rules are and why they're there, and why we may blow our horn, or why there's crossing arms that come down. And generally speaking, most of the time, if there's an accident at a crossing, it's because somebody didn't follow those rules appropriately. They decided to take a risk. So we don't want to hide that message. As a common carrier, we're obligated to move that freight safely and effectively. We don't want to hide behind that cab and just roll through a town and hope that nothing happens. We want the community, the school bus drivers, the truck drivers, the pedestrians, the bicyclists to know what to do around a train and what not to do, and the seriousness of that. You can see how, again, we try to improve through our excellence, right? Every time that we can. And we had a good year versus 2014 in the number of presentations that we gave and the people that we reached. I happen to sit on the, Matt I know is an Operation Lifesaver representative. Leanne, I believe, is as well. I happen to sit on the Utah Operation Board of Lifesavers Board of Directors as well. And I know, I went into it again as a marketing and salesperson, not knowing how I could contribute to rail safety and operations. Today, as I stand in front of you, it's one of the most important things that I'm proud of in my activities with my job, because I feel like it makes a difference. And I don't only feel like it makes a difference, I know that it makes a difference. I know of examples. So to conclude somewhat about what our culture is for Genesee and Wyoming and for Ventura County Railroad, safety is number one. For our employees, for the community that we serve as well. We want to conduct our business with ethics. We want to be here doing things right. We don't want to hide anything, cover anything up. We want to be here to do and conduct our business at the utmost of ethics. We also want to be humble, okay? If we were to stand up here and be proud of what a train can do, that's not the right way that we want to represent ourselves. We want to be humble and know that several thousands of tons of steel is not very forgiving to flesh, right? We want to know with humility that there are other options out there in transportation that people have that they can choose. And so we want to be humble about that, let them know what we can do safely and effectively. And we're always wanting to have continuous improvement. I mentioned that our decision making is done for long-term ramifications. Whether it's buying a railroad, changing policies, looking at an unsafe act, it's all done for positive, long-term results. And lastly, we want to be a partner with our customers that we serve. We have to do a good job for them. They rely on us to get their product, which is their economics, their bread and butter for that company and its employees. We want them to know that we're a partner with them. We also want to know our connecting railroads that I had on the pie chart up there, that we're reliable and dependable. And we've done that as a company and as a railroad. In fact, when railroads come up for sale and people have input, they know our culture, they know our history, they know what they're going to get, and they oftentimes award us with business, even though we may at times be a low bid on a railroad up for sale, because they trust that we will do the right thing for that railroad in the long term. Not to come in and buy high and hopefully sell high. And then lastly, within number 5, I've not altered this slide. This is the slide that we give day in and day out, year after year. We want to partner with you as a community. We want to let you know why we're here, why we run our railroads the way we do, not somebody else. And we want you to know that we're here serving your community. And we also end every presentation with this slide, 0 injuries. For every single one of you, for every single one of our employees, we want to go home. We want to have dinner with our families. We don't want to talk about bad things. We want to go there and enjoy what we did the day, for that day, and be proud of it by serving our customers and our communities. That's all I have.
Is it time for questions yet? I'll be quick.
Yeah, we came here for
Yeah, we
questions,
want to know what's going on. Let me just-
not presentations
We
for
don't,
40
we
minutes.
really don't care. And it's been almost an hour.
You took way too long, sir.
She came all the way from,
Have a little respect.
okay, maybe she can answer our
Just
questions.
have some respect.
5 minutes, please.
We did
Wow.
schedule this until 7 o'clock. knowing
We
that
understand, and we wanted to answer questions. It's good, believe me,
That
we could keep you here for 2 hours.
includes
You bet.
We really could. Just give her 5 minutes. It's important to us to get our message out. We want to hear your questions too, but it's important for us to get our message out. Okay, I know you guys are chomping, so let me just get through this, okay? So, I'm from the Federal Railroad Administration. Who is the FRA? Well, think of the FAA, but for railroads. Everybody knows about the FAA, nobody knows about me,
Not true,
okay? Excuse me?
not true.
You know about the FRA?
I've done 20 years on the railroad, so
Well, good for you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there we go. So you can read it at will because I'm going to change the slide. So I know a lot of people get upset about horns. Who's upset about horns?
More upset about vibration.
Well, vibration. Well, give me the horns. Okay, throw me a bone here. Who cares about horns? About horns today. So horns went into effect. It's a federal law, went into effect in 2005. It used to be, it was a state law, but the feds came in and said, why, let's change it. Let's have a federal law consistent throughout the nation. We put this horn rule together to ensure a high level of public safety. It requires consistent use throughout the nation and establish specific steps for communities to create quiet zones. Okay? What the rule does, it requires trains to approaching public crossings to sound the horn as a warning. Now, the state of California, they also have to blow for private crossings. It's state law. Provides exceptions for use of the horn where the risk is minimal, and it enables communities to establish quiet zones, like I said before. Okay, it's time-based. It used to be distance-based, so no matter how fast or slow the train was going, it had to start blowing at a quarter of a mile. But now it blows 15 to 20 seconds prior to occupying the crossing. Occupy could be anything. We've got 2 Class 1 railroads that can't even agree on what occupy means. So the pattern's too long, a short and a long, repeated until that 15 to 20 seconds is done. Okay? They're not sounded more than a quarter of a mile from the crossing, and so we can repeat, prolong, or vary when crossings are close together. Okay, why do engineers blow the horn? Because it's the law. They warn pedestrians, motorists, and animals. It's their job. They could be held criminally liable, they could lose their job, and they could be sued personally, and the railroad could be sued. So it's a big deal. They have to blow the horn. In and out of a quiet zone, they will blow the horn if the crossing devices are not functioning as intended. In emergency situations, for roadway worker, those are the guys in orange vests that are working along the track, and where operating rules insist that they have to blow the horn. What's a quiet zone? You guys ever heard of a quiet zone before? Okay, we'll pass that one now. We'll pass that one now. Communities can have a quiet zone, that's the no regular use of the train horn zone. So it silences the horn when they're coming towards the public crossing. Okay? You've got 3 public crossings here in Port Hueneme. Train horn volume, that's also regulated by the federal government. What?
Could you go back to the previous slide?
That's on the,
That's
on the east side.
Okay,
Yeah, on this side of the track, on the port side, the commercial seaport, we're referencing in this.
okay. Okay, train horn volume is also regulated by the federal government. You cannot use the Radio Shack decibel reader that you have at home to measure the train horn. It's very specific. It's 15 feet above the top of the rail, 100 feet in front of the locomotive, and it has to be measured in a place where there's no echo effect, so it has to be like in an open field. There's only like 2 places in the whole state of California where they can measure locomotive horns. Okay, all railroads are in compliance, and that's short lines and class ones in 2010. So we've talked about why we have trains. Okay, 300 trucks. Can you imagine not having a train and having all that truck traffic on your roads? They're 4 times more fuel efficient than trucks, and they emit 1/3 less pollution than trucks. Write it down, kids. That's my comments. That's my information if you need it for complaints. My grandma lived in Fort Wayne. That's why you're getting my cell phone number. Time for questions.
So what I'll do, I know there are a lot of questions, so I'll try and capture all your hands. I know, let's start with you, because you mentioned vibrations. Go ahead.
Yeah, I live in the cul-de-sac right at the Ventura public crossing. And every time a semi truck goes by or a city bus goes by, my home experiences a small earthquake. So, I don't know what you meant by 4 quarterly runs. What does that mean?
Yeah, so,
Are they gonna operate just 4 times a year?
at this point, yes.
1 time a day?
Yes, correct. Yep, so once a quarter, we're gonna just run a train across there. When I say a train, it's probably just gonna be a locomotive.
How many cars though?
It's probably none at this point. We wanna make sure that the track stays.
Because I don't wanna have the house shake for another 3 minutes. Because last year, I already had a slab in it. I'm concerned about all vibration causing, structural damage to my home.
I can understand, but
Who do I have to get in touch with? Is it the port or the city to address? Because I know every so often they have to fix that public crossing so that the dip doesn't, like they have to build like a dune or something.
that would be the city at the crossing.
Yeah, because every time a truck goes by, it slams it hard. And it's like a small earthquake.
There's a couple of things. First of all, I was on the track the other day, and you guys have a lot of the nails coming out, or not even there, just like, I'm 71 now, so I can't remember. But you also have the bridge, and I cannot believe you're still rolling an engine over that bridge. And do you plan on redoing all of those tracks?
Everything,
I can answer
yeah,
that.
go ahead, man.
The line is inspected every month per the FRA regulations. It meets all of the class 1. Class 1 is the lowest of the classes as far as speed, and that determines type of maintenance and the spikes condition that you can have. It meets all of the requirements of the class 1 railroad. The bridge, you bring a question, it doesn't have a handrail. That doesn't affect the structure itself, but the bridge is inspected every year by an outside qualified legal bridge contractor. And
You have holes in
the walkway.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
which-
over the bridge. yeah.
Correct, which affects
And
our,
that's okay, that's class 1?
correct, to run a train over it.
Really?
Now, walking over it, that's up to us to determine whether I can allow an employee to walk over it, or I can put out a special order saying, don't walk over the bridge because it's got holes in it. But it doesn't affect the structural integrity as far as the bridge itself. It is inspected every year again, and it is legal. And the spikes, even though you might see them, what we call sticking up, that's not a defect. And again, so the tie condition, the rail condition, all of the joints, all of the infrastructure is inspected every month, and to this day, it's illegal to run at the speed we run, which is 10 miles an hour.
Okay, then
That's a class.
why was I told? that the track was not in good shape by railroad employees.
Who?
I don't know his name. I had
Yeah,
to
what-
be
I
out
mean-
there on the track and go
But
over.
that's one thing that's really
Yeah.
concerning to me, that you're out there on the track. That's, I mean,
On the
that's.
track. I can't get away from the track,
Okay,
okay?
all right, okay.
And I want to ask one thing about our property. You know, when I came here and I bought, nobody, including real estate, told me there was a train run on the track. So the first couple of years, you know, all of a sudden we had trains. And I thought they were just running them to keep the tracks, you know, with the FRA, got to running into them once a month, like we did on my railroad. But anyhow, so what are you going, what is the situation there for our property? I mean, it's gonna go down. We're gonna have to report that the train comes through. And we can't report it's coming through once a quarter because it's gonna start coming through every day. That's gonna change. And so you telling us now, you know, is right now, but you plan on running daily trains through here.
Everybody that's here.
Am I right or wrong?
Well, everybody that's here that has a concern about the traffic of the volume of that railroad, you're here for the right reason because you want to know.
Yep.
And you're contacting the right, or you're dealing with the right people, not a real estate agent that wants to sell a
No,
house.
but what I'm saying is that if I had known, I wouldn't have,
Did you call the
Okay.
railroad?
no, I was told that they didn't use it,
Yeah.
okay?
And we would have told you, this is what, as a
That was
railroad
16
owner.
years ago.
I know. And here's my point. Our rail line has never been abandoned. The track has never been taken up.
Sure looks like it's abandoned, there's weeds and everything growing over
And
there.
glass
That's
like
not
crazy.
abandoned. It's not abandoned.
There's
So this is
graffiti.
already written in stone, and you're gonna be running railroad, trains down the railroad tracks regardless of what we say.
Right,
You betcha.
Yeah, regardless of how we feel.
Ma'am, we have a common carrier obligation. I explained the benefits.
Don't give me the
of rail.
politician's answer, I just want yes or no.
This is the reality. It's
So
not-
yes,
it's
you
not
are,
drama.
regardless.
Don't tell us
We are
totally.
going to run trains on that line, absolutely.
Okay.
And what that volume will be, I can't tell you. Right now, there's not enough volume, there's not a new customer or anything like that, that I could say, this is a customer that's gonna make this product.
You also can't tell us that they're not gonna be running in the middle of the night and blowing their horns all
That's
night
right.
long. You
That's
can't
right.
promise us anything like that.
I
Any
can't.
quality of life from here on out.
I can't. And a trucker
Right.
won't do it either if he has to go through your neighborhood.
Great.
I mean,
Trucker won't do what?
freight has to move.
I get
What a schedule a
semi-trucks
truck
go
would
on, you know, all
All the
hours of
time,
day.
all the time.
2 a.m., 3 a.m.
If we run a train, chances are it's gonna be one occurrence per day. On whatever set schedule would accommodate what needs to
That's
be.
at least once, right? It could be more than
It
once.
could be 3 times a week,
On a track that hasn't been used in over 20 years.
correct.
Okay.
And the reason, think if you're in business and you needed to locate,
What if
and
it's
you had an
rails or
important
something?
product that you needed to make for a market, you need to get that product to service. You gotta find a place. You need rail.
I am in business, and I understand that, but I'm also a property owner, and you're gonna
Yeah.
drive down everybody's property value in the entire city of
Yep.
Port Whitney by doing that.
That's
The
right.
Everybody's.
railroad-
That's
the
The
right.
entire
railroad-
city.
I disagree with you.
How could you disagree?
Are there any examples
Then
you
you're not
can cite?
educated.
Are there any examples you could cite of property values either remaining the same or changing in any way once a rail system gets reactivated?
I can't, I'm not on the real estate side of
I
selling
think I can
houses.
answer that for you.
Okay.
But you've been in marketing.
Yes.
Not surprisingly, Jim Hensley, Fort Whitney City Council. And I understand what you folks are concerned about, something new in your neighborhoods, but it isn't new, it's been there for a long time. As far as property values, some of the most expensive properties in California set by a railroad track. If you go up the coast, you see fabulous homes right by a railroad track. We have a railroad track here, and that's the high-speed rail where big freights grow. I used to stay with friends over on San Juan Road and housing next to the railroad track. Now that was housing and let out. But nonetheless, because coastal property is so expensive, people are gonna buy it. They're gonna still want it. The train might diminish it a little bit, but in the long run, you still got an expensive.
Want to buy my house?
Yeah, I buy your house, I see
I have
it.
a question.
You're next, sir, in the back, in the white shirt.
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
If you're gonna move vehicles, where are they gonna be processed at? At the point of origin or somewhere else?
I think in answer, there's certain cargoes that the port handles today that we're not going to divert onto railroad, because it just isn't, the economics and competitiveness isn't there for a short haul operation, just double handling from taking it off the train, taking it off the ship and putting it on the train. The model that we have today for vehicle processing works, and I don't believe there would be a shift to run cars on the tracks. It just, the economics aren't there for it. Same with the banana business. It's just, it's much more efficient. So the potential, that I don't want to speak for the railroad, but the potential customers they could realize would be, say, something like a project cargo, something like a wind blade, for instance, a big piece of cargo that's coming in from, say, China or something like that. That type of commodity makes sense for rail cars. Things that you couldn't handle on a truck necessarily would be the types of cargoes that you would handle for short haul operations. There is some discussion of maybe the fertilizer going on there, but again, it would be a question of economics whether that makes sense. We handle about 200 trucks a day go through the port handling fertilizer. That type of scenario might make sense for rail. But again, I think another thing we want to put out is that the spur doesn't go far enough along the dock today either, so there have to be other infrastructure improvements as well for it to, so it's not like this is Turkey, all of a sudden in a year, there's going to be trains running through here. I mean, it's going to be a thoughtful strategic plan process that's based on investments that would marry up with real business opportunity.
So you're not
So-
decreasing the trucks, you're just increasing trains. You just said that you're not going to change the trucks.
No,
Carrying what they're carrying now.
No, for fertilizer product would be an example where you would take 200 trucks off the road a day, putting it on a rail car. That would be a good example of what we could do with a rail car in terms of existing commodities coming through the
And you
port.
would put fertilizer through our,
The fertilizer is, again, is urea-based, non-flammable, non-hazardous cargo. But that's one that makes a lot of sense for rail. And I don't know if you
This
want to.
gentleman's had his hand up forever.
Are you gonna redo an environmental impact report on all this before you start?
Federal or state?
It's already been done when the railroad was put into effect. And so. What's changing? I mean, what's changed?
What's changed is that you're gonna start using the railroad. It's not used now.
we keep losing our say.
Can I just, is it a PUC regulation for the EIR or your agency, ma'am? If an EIR was needed for all these questions about property values, about impact, about noise, I can't believe there isn't a federal or state requirement by law for a new operator who's been out of business for 20 years, so either the feds or the PUC would do that.
It's not true, sir.
Well, we'll check it out ourselves independently.
Excuse me, I've been holding my...
I'll just say, the feds don't have anything, so maybe it must be, you could possibly contact the CPUC on that.
Excuse me, I have a question, I've been waiting. Hello?
Hey, hang on one sec, we're trying to have a, let me finish this question, okay? I see that your hand's up, so I'll call on you next. So, we'll have to get with the PUC to see if what their regulations are on this, okay?
Thank you.
Sir?
I mean, is there an opportunity, like if they are gonna run the train, right, that they could use like electric, possibly locomotives that would be quieter, right? So there's other opportunities to sort of minimize this noise effect. It's not the end of the world. And the other thing is, I live right in the bungalow, so I've got the railroad on one side and I've got Winnie Road on the other. Those trucks flying up and down, whether they be Del Monte, whether they be Chiquita, is dangerous. And it's just a matter of time before one of those trucks jackknifes and sends bananas and everything all over the place. So I personally think that the railroad is a better option. It's green, it's environmentally friendly,
and it spares our roads that wear and tear from all those heavy trucks. So I'm in support, I'm saying like I would support doing the railroad.
I appreciate that. And to your point on the alternative fuels, we are in discussions with the Air Resources Board. I know Christina met with a group of people that are looking at bringing some cap and trade money potentially to the port. We're working with Mike Vegas at the Ventura County Air Quality Control District to pilot the potential alternative fuel near or zero emission locomotive.
Exactly. The California Energy Commission has their eyes on this railroad as well to be able to figure out if there's a viable option to turn it to electric or something, an alternative fuel that would be.
Thank you for answering my question.
Okay.
We want the technology to work well too, because our customers are relying on us to move that.
Why'd you talk about that?
Effectively. Ma'am, you had your hand up.
As a homeowner on Waimea Road, and similar to this lady who was told the trucks will not be running, certain hours of the day, basically Monday through Friday, I need to tell you, those trucks are going 24/7, okay? And the increase that's coming out of that port has caused such pollution, okay? The pollution that we're experiencing in that area is horrific. I mean, if you just look at the exteriors of the homes that face Waimea Road, you can see the grit that's being emitted by these trucks. They're also bringing that big cargo that you're talking about, this unique equipment, okay, which is so hazardous. I face Waimea Road, and I've seen trucks do such hazardous stuff and making turns, literally making U-turns in that thing. There are children that cross that street to go to Waimea School. So, I mean, nobody wants anything in their own backyard. Let's all agree to that. But we have to look at what's best for our community in Waimea and look at more safe and more clean, for the cleaner environment. So I do support that, but I think for everybody's sake, we really need to know what is the environmental impact for our beaches, for our customers, for the people that are going to be in that area. Train safety, number one, okay? What are the hazards? What are really, so that each and every one of us can walk away and articulate the safety that has been put into place for our crossing at each one of these. Okay? I think we need more than that. We appreciate the history and the foundation that you've provided, but I think we need a lot more as to help us to see what that's going to do for our community.
Can you give us the schedule again that you kind of outlined over the next year or whatever? How many trains are going to be running? What was for?
I can answer that. When they get, the term train, Kristen said once a quarter, so one every 4 months. The train, it's a locomotive. The train is not a train. We've done one already this year. And we basically ran the engine. We had people waving to us hello. We had other people cursing at us. But we ran into the gate. The maximum speed for us is 10 miles an hour, the entire railroad. We ran into the gate at like 5 miles an hour. Stopped, said hello, we went back. We'll do that once a quarter, just because we can. It doesn't make sense to do it more because it costs fuel, it costs my labor, and other things. Track is maintained. It has been maintained, as we said. It's never been abandoned. It's been legal since the day it's been laid. And I've been on this property 25 years.
So the plan, I don't mean to interrupt, but the plan is one time a quarter. You've already done one, so you have 3 more quarters.
Correct.
One engine, one train every 3 months.
One
the
locomotive.
Next 9 months.
One locomotive.
One locomotive.
Train is not the right term.
So is there any way we can get the exact date? Because I'd like to be home.
Yeah, I think we can, and yes, that's a good point. The Banana Festival, we were asked by the owners to participate. The public liked it. We used it, as you can see my Operation Lifesaver shirt. I did a presentation while I was there. I think we made a difference as far as rail safety goes. So if we're invited again, then that will be an additional lighting of an engine and caboose coming for the Banana Festival.
Cool.
So, in addition to what you said. And another note, just again, I can't promise anything, as Glenn has said, but just so you know, again, the rest of the railroad that we run every day. Historically, it's been a 5-day-a-week railroad. My employees like their quality of life also, so it's Monday through Friday. It's been Monday through Friday, again, my entire career. And the guys work a normal daylight shift in railroading as best you can, 6 in the morning till 2 or 3. I don't anticipate that changing unless there's a tremendous need. I don't want to work anybody nights, and I don't want to work anybody weekends. So if anything ever happens down here, I'm hoping, and I'm going to try to steer that, to where it would fit into the normal schedule that we have going every day of the week on the rest of the railroad that you guys, we don't see on this end. Monday through Friday, we run normally 1 train a day. 1 train out, 1 train back. That's normal. I don't see why, again, unless you have a lot of business, that would change.
What would be the size of that 1 train a day? 100 car, 50
Well,
car, 25? And how fast would it be going out of the port, running through Surfside Drive, 10 miles an hour?
A couple questions. Yeah, the maximum speed is 10 miles an hour. That's governed by the federal government. Now, coming out of the port, I mean, we use judgment and common sense. You know, we're not going to probably blast out of the gate at 10 miles an hour. This railroad is going on 10 years this week injury-free. It's going on almost 7,000 days without a derailment. The railroad and its employees are extremely safe. We've never had an environmental issue, never had a diesel spill, never had anything like that. So we're going to operate it like we always do. Going through the park, I imagine we're going to be going a little slower than 10 because it makes sense.
So it's going to be a very slow train.
We're going to be, again, we can do 10 max, but we can do 1 if we want to. We just can't go more than 10. And what was, the length of the trains, right now our average trains out there average between 10 and 30 car lengths long. That's what we average today. Depending on what we have here, I don't see that changing. Like Kristen said, there's not a lot of capacity here. We can't build a 100-car train here like you can in Long Beach. So it's physically impossible.
Okay.
So you have the limited capacity, which is going to keep the trains smaller.
And is it because of the 2020 strategic plan that the port put into place to deepen the harbor an extra 5 feet to allow bigger ships to come in? That's what revitalized the railroads.
Well, yeah, I won't speak for Kristen. That's her 2020 plan. From the railroad point of view, we are a for-profit company. There's no business here. So the reason you haven't seen trains the last 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, because there's no reason to come out here.
But their long-term goal, because of bringing in bigger ships, now you have the opportunity.
We're just open and transparent that we have this asset, we have customers, if they secure our opportunity, it could happen. And we're trying to share it with the community that there is this infrastructure there.
And you know, you were talking about, you just briefly,
I'm sorry.
you had briefly said the word sand when you were going to, I know when you dredge the harbor, Wainimi Beach gets sand. I don't know to what magnitude you go down, how deep you go down, but you're going down 5 feet and it looks like enormous amount of area that you're going to be digging up. Having said that, the economical impact on that sand that is 5 feet deep, has it been there for 20 years, 30 years? Is there gas, oils, different sediments from maybe the ships that have come in? You're going to pump that out into the ocean. You've got to think about swimmers, surfers.
Of course, no, it's not going to
pollution
get
regarding
pumped
that.
unless it meets the clean test. It's getting tested this summer with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We'd never put it out there if it wasn't adequate sand for the
So there will be
community.
testing then?
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Kristen, can you speak for a second, maybe you or one of your staff, to the economic benefits that this potentially brings to the city in a time where the city is looking for additional revenue streams? You know, what upside can we see from this as it grows?
For instance, we know, I don't know how much jobs are related, depends on the type of product, but we know, for instance, with the deepening going deeper, we know that could be as many as 563 jobs going to the 40 feet. Do you have stats on rail business? And that might be something that I have to bring back, but it's going to be, if we're bringing trains on board, we're going to get more longshore work. There's definitely going to be more work and more jobs, more gangs. There'll definitely be more jobs. The numbers, I have a maritime expert, and I can certainly get an assessment on that for you.
What's going to happen with that property in front of Anacapa Beach Homes that's been designated as a parking lot and possible bathroom facilities by the city of Port Wainimi?
I have
I'm
no
looking to
idea.
I see leadership in the room here from
that was designated as a potential parking lot and bathroom facilities as the city grew. And having said that, what's gonna happen if the city decides, we're gonna put a parking lot in their bathroom facilities? What happens to the rails?
Perhaps Councilman John Sharkey can answer that.
Are you even aware of that?
I want to make sure that people that have not had a chance to ask a question, that they get a turn.
Did a railroad, I bet they're not even allowed.
Can I just say, it sounds like we're assuming that if there's train traffic, that will diminish the truck traffic. Now, is that a good assumption? Because otherwise, it could just be in addition to the truck traffic that you're talking about, which I'm sure is horrendous. I think we want to make sure that we don't make the wrong assumption.
Yeah, you know, without knowing what the opportunities are and how far that product has to go, those are all things that either make it truck worthy to move it or rail worthy. So if you've got a long distance to go and you've got a lot of material or heavy material, that's very conducive for rail. If it's a short haul move within the state, within maybe 300 miles, for a railroad to compete against trucking and what trucking has to offer for that, there's just so many dynamics that I can't give you an answer. I just don't know.
Okay, so in other words, we shouldn't really assume that the truck traffic on Wainini Road will increase.
I think this is what would be safe to assume in today's world. Population is increasing. Goods and services are going to be at a higher demand because population increases, which then means every form of transportation is going to become critical to get those goods to market. I know it's a blanket answer, but unless we have something specific to sit down and talk about that particular opportunity impact, it's hard to say what could happen or how it could move. I'm not trying to dance.
The one thing I could say, if new business comes to the port and it's not on rail, then it's on trucks. So whatever's going on the rail car is definitely going to keep trucks on the road.
And if I could add to that, Kristen, for those in the room, my name's Tracy Sisson Phillips, I'm with the Chamber of Commerce. This also has an impact on our transportation situation countywide, because more trucks on the road in Wainini, more trucks on the road in the county. We already are in a situation where our freeway infrastructure is in a challenging situation. Maybe Councilmember Sharkey can help me elaborate, but this potentially could be beneficial from a countywide perspective to us as well. So more car space on our freeways and less trucks.
Sir, way in the back with the sunglasses, you've been very patient. I
Appreciate that. I support what you're trying to do, and I've been here for 20 years, and I'll just ask everyone to take a deep breath and exhale. If you move to this area, you either love the beach, or you love ships, or you love the port. And the trucks are a byproduct of that. And as we grow and the port becomes more important to this region, you have to expect a little more inconvenience. And that's part of the trade-off of living so close to the beach. So I just want everyone to take a deep breath and think about this economically on the big picture. But on the safety front, I'm a risk management professional. I appreciate the fact that your safety goals are number one, and you're very, very much upfront about that. And I heard you say quiet zones with regards to horn. That's the only thing that really bothers me is, like, are we going to hear, like, oh, those big locomotive horns in the middle of Wainini? Is that the rule?
Yep, that's a federal rule, and they have to blow and like I said, they have to blow not only for public crossings, but for private crossings, which we call passive or cross-butt crossing. That's a state law.
But you did say something about a quiet zone.
Yeah, so a quiet zone is where the community works with the state of California, who has the ultimate authority over crossings. We work through the rule, and we are able to mitigate some safety measures. You're taking away the train-borne warning device, and so maybe median barriers, additional gates, something like that has to happen to mitigate that you're taking the horn away.
So there's an opportunity for the community to say, the horn's a little bit over the top for this.
It takes the majority of the horns away. It doesn't take all horns away. Because if an engineer sees something, somebody on the track.
I understand
looking
that.
at, you know, an animal, or something like that, you know, they're gonna blow the horn, or if they have to blow.
And then one last question, I'll sit down and shut up. I heard that you're flexible in your safety and you're always examining unsafe acts or looking for ways to improve. So would it be within your capability to take a look at the fact that the train runs very slowly down through a park, and maybe there's another way to escort that train out safely, particularly on and you know, I'm talking like perhaps years down the road, because you're only scheduled to run 4 trains with no cargo at this point in time, so I do think we're getting ahead of ourselves. However, if there comes a day where you're moving 4 or 5 cars on a locomotive, would you be open to other means to ensure safety, particularly like going down through the park area and I don't know what that could be. It could be escorting the train or have a lookout or just other things to increase safety.
I would say, yes, to answer the question, yes, we would look at that if the need was there. I mean, escorting, I don't think that would be an answer. I know in some corridors, the Alameda corridor, for example, they dug a big trench and buried the train in the ground to get away from the crossing. So we're not going to do that to the park, but maybe a fencing, you know, that would be up between us and Kristen. But if you wanted to, but then you have looks ugly, you know, you have a fence there. So I'll be open to looking, listening at options.
Beautiful answer. Some of the class 1 railroads, and I know they have a lot of money, but some of them are looking at drone technology that would like be in front of the train as the train's running along, and then they could talk back to the train and say that, you know, there's kids rocking or there's something like that going on. You know, if you got a pokey train, 5 miles an hour, walking speed almost, you know, you have to be really careful because people take a lot of chances when they know the train is going slow. There's studies done that the faster the train, the safer. So you have to be really, really careful when, you know, and to have a slow train like that, because kids are going to take a chance of, oh, I'm not going to wait for these 2 boxcars to go by. I'm going to run in front. So, you know, or in between,
Yeah.
or jump on it.
Sir?
I'm Tom Fig, I'm a councilman, but I'm here as a resident. I can't speak on behalf of the council. But I got 40 years plus in this community. I came here first as an employee and did a lot of redevelopment south of Wainimi Road. That railroad was the only thing that's left standing. When I came here, we tore everything out south of Wainimi Road. And so I'm sorry if realtors told you that railroad doesn't work. It's been here as part of, as long as I've been here, back in the 70s. So more importantly is, when we went through this exercise back in the 70s and the 80s, when there was an expansion occurring with the harbor, we didn't dictate, but it was through cooperation between the city and the harbor. Our concern was the crossing at Channel Islands, because the southerly rail wasn't as much as of an interest to the harbor at that time. But through cooperation, we worked out an arrangement where the rails, you know, the length of the cars, that was a concern because we don't want traffic to be stopped for 15 minutes. And we're also concerned about AM and PM peak traffic on Channel Islands. We don't want to disrupt the peak periods of time on Channel Islands. We worked that out cooperatively, and it's worked out fine. Now back then we weren't as concerned about the type of cargo that's going to be crossing that street. And now maybe that's an issue that needs to be addressed. But I heard that we can't regulate, and I understand that. You know, we got intercommerce issues and that kind of stuff. But cooperatively through the experts that are here, can we not arrive at some sort of an agreement cooperatively with the neighborhoods about the frequency of the movements, the time of day of the movements, whether or not we have to blow the whistle at all hours? Are these things that we can cooperatively arrive at? Because it worked previously, 20-plus years ago, with the Channel Island situation. So can you address that?
From a business perspective, I'm always willing to sit down and talk, always, because we all learn from doing that. So the answer to that is absolutely, we'll sit down and talk. Now, we also, as Matt said, I mean, we run a railroad for opportunity and profit too. That's how we get paid, that's how our family gets fed, and that's important for us. As part of those negotiations comes the dynamics of what kind of car it may be, rail car, what the commodity may be. But if we do know we can handle it safely and effectively, we want to be able to do that for all of the right reasons, okay? But it doesn't mean that we're not going to try to talk to people in the community if they have a concern.
So I guess what I'm asking, and I'm going to leave it to our executive director here at the harbor, what's the best way to have that dialogue so that we can kind of come together as to what the best approach is that works for everybody?
I can give an example too. Matt and I just did this, a year ago. There was trains running through Oxnard. It was going by homes, at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. There was one complaint, just one, and we fixed it. And that train doesn't run at those hours anymore. So we are very open to the dialogue. I'll give everybody our phone numbers, who to contact at the port. We can facilitate these meetings, we can have discussions. If we learn that there's going to be a business opportunity, we'll sit down with the community and figure out how to best manage that opportunity within the confines of what G&W is capable of doing on the safety and efficiency pieces.
I guess I want to impress upon you that we've gone through this before, and we came up with a workable solution. And I'm confident that we can get there again.
That's why we're here now.
And so I guess it's, what's the mechanism to make that work? And I'll just leave that as a question for you maybe to ponder, what the best mechanism to have that dialogue and reach some sort of informal understanding.
Understood. And cooperation is something we certainly want to promote and advocate and implement. And the blue has been waiting a long time.
And then the next one blew over.
Since the railroad was operating back in the 70s, there's been a lot more development in that area, local homes that are in that area. Mine in particular, my block wall is right next to that thing. In the 7 years that I've been there, there's been 3 times that they've done a test run. And in those 3 times, first of all, it scared the daylights out of me because it came up like at 3 or 4 in the morning, and it was a lot of noise. What are you folks? I know your goal is to maximize your business as much as you legally can. So as many trips as you can take, more money you're going to make. I understand that as a business. What are your other plans and how you're going to mitigate the effects of the homeowners that live there? Well, I mean, you've got the plan on how you long-term develop. You're going to test the track once a quarter, then maybe it's going to be once a month, and it's going to be once a day, eventually. What are you doing, or what is your long-term plans, or what have you done in other communities to prevent the noise pollution that's going to come in, prevent whatever the exhaust fumes and stuff that are going to go? I look at that park myself, and that park is right on there. I mean, I don't know how you're going to prevent people. What were your plans when you bought the airport, and what have you done in other communities to prevent that from happening? Minimizing it. Besides the safety things which you addressed.
Well, I think to answer your question, the railroad going to the park is unique. To build a park around the railroad, I wouldn't have done that. The railroad was there first. But to your point, I think the quality of life of yourself is important to me, and so is my employees. And I'm going to try to run the trains as efficiently as possible. And that's going to mean the most efficient engine, whether it's a green locomotive, so your fumes are minimal, which is an option, with everybody looking into that. The time of day, like we do now. And like Chris said, we had a customer come online, and they wanted us to get there early. So we moved our on-duty time up. Well, a resident didn't like that. So we talked to our customer in Kristen, and we worked out an agreement. So we bumped our start time back. Neighbor was already gone to work at that time. So we solved that pretty easily. And the job is still getting done, and the customer is getting served, and they're happy. So not a one fix for all. I think in your case, again, if this is the line we're talking about, I don't see today any business. So you're going to have this one engine every quarter, and the business will dictate the velocity and the length and the amount of trains. But right now, the railroad operates, again, one train a day, 5 days a week. I don't see that changing.
Are you planning on creating sound barriers, like, you know, when they build freeways and stuff like that, they build large sound barriers to keep the noise at a minimum for the residents?
Well,
I like to see the ocean out the wall.
We might have to quieter trains, perhaps, through new technologies.
Pardon me?
Quieter trains through technology, and who knows, when or how that will come. We want to be progressive in our business. We want to be good stewards in the community. Matt mentions that we were there first, and I know people don't like to hear that. You were there first, so what, kind of thing. Well, you can't just build a railroad in a lot of places. In fact, in today's day and age, it's pretty hard to build a rail network. And it's there.
How come?
Because of the land and the many property owners that it would take. So,
okay.
I mean, trust, I think they're already there. Really. Yeah, so if you've got that, you've built that for the long run, okay? And if you didn't want that railroad there anymore, it's called abandonment, and it happens a lot. And people, by abandoning it, they file it with the federal government. We will no longer run this operation on this piece of property. The track is pulled up. And a word of advice for people that have built around the railroads. Number one, do not trust your realtor when they are answering the railroad. Plain and simple. Now, okay, I've got examples from my property that I've bought, not having to do with railroad, number one, because I know these issues. I grew up around the railroad. To me, I hear a train, it brings back childhood memories for me. It's a good thing. Does that fit for everybody? Absolutely not. But if you see a railroad, the railroad isn't going to get into your life and ask who's going to buy this property. We all have better things to do in our lives. If the railroad is there, check with the railroad company. Don't ask your realtor. And if you decided to buy a home, is there something that you can do to prevent that noise on your own property? Because when we bought the railroad and there was nothing there around it, and it's one of the most capital intensive businesses to own and operate as a railroad. The last thing that we really want to do is go on every single one of our railroads. We would be broke. We could not operate our railroads under those scenarios. And who would lose? The people that need to ship freight and the people that need to receive freight. The winners are the select few people along that rail corridor. They would win by not having that nuisance. There is a sense of responsibility on all of us. All of us.
So what you're saying is that when they developed all these different properties, after the railroad was built, the people who made the decisions to allow the developers to build those things, they knew full right that the railroad was going to be operating once a day.
Now, we've got an example, Matt, you've got one, I think, here in Oxnard, where the city is wanting to develop something, and thank goodness there was communication there. They wanted to put a sidewalk right along the railroad, right? I mean, if they don't know, and they're planners or whatever, they're looking at a piece of property, what the accomplishment is, and how we're going to design this. Contact the railroad. Let us be part of that conversation, because we may say that's not a good place to put a sidewalk.
Yeah, just a side note, the very first time that railroad came by my house, I tried to figure out who was the railroad, whether it was Genesee or whatever it was. I swear, the city didn't know who the railroad contract was. I heard this Ventura County Railroad, they didn't know. I mean, it took me, like days upon days to figure out who it was. And then even then they didn't really know the specifics and stuff like that. So the line of communication that you had recommended certainly didn't work in the past at all.
So what I can commit to in terms of communication is that we are going out to all the housing associations. We can circulate all the schedules of when the trains are going to run, so you're not surprised. I think we could probably even do the timetable. That's why we, actually, the first time around, we tried to get on the radio, we tried to get in the newspaper, we called all the housing associations, because we want you to know when it's going to happen. So and if you can help us in how we can best communicate with you, is it going through your housing associations? Is that the best way to do it? Let us know, because we certainly want you to be well informed.
Mail flyers for every.
And this is huge for the railroad to tell you when they're running. Because the Class 1 railroads won't, because it's all at Homeland Security stuff. This is huge to have a railroad say, we're gonna run during the day, and we're going 5 miles an hour. Because if you guys were on Class 1 railroad, they'd say, well, we have to run at night so we can leave it open for Amtrak during the day for commuters. These guys are really bending over backwards. I know they're sitting up straight, but I can see how far they're bending over for you guys. They're really helping you out. So, wait a minute, this is the next blue shirt.
When, in the future, when cargo is actually moved on trains through the port, is there any protocol in terms of, let's say it's 5 or 10 or 30 cars, would they be allowed to park that train on the track for extended amounts of time? In other words, for example, I'm over here at Anacapa View Homes. Would we see this 12-foot high train parked for 3 hours in front of our property, or would it just go in, load, close the door, load up, and then come back out?
Yes. Probably an operational question.
Yeah, it sounds like.
Legally, yeah, we can park the train on our property anywhere we want. We have guidelines with crossings. We can't be up against a road crossing. But why would we do that unless we had a locomotive breakdown or something happened? Our goal, from a business standpoint, is to get it from A to B. That's what the customer is expecting. That's what our guys do. They just go back and forth all day long. So unless something unusual happened, I don't know why we would ever do that.
I'm saying you don't have a turnaround inside your yard, so that when there's one train loading while one train waiting, and then they switch, that type of thing.
Right now, no. I mean, to give you an idea, right now, no. We get the cars from the Union Pacific. A little history here. We get the cars from the Union Pacific, and we come out to New Indy, the paper mill, the other branch lines, short of Perkins, and then we go back and we give those other cars back to the Union Pacific. That's what we do every day, or we do it on the other division out to the military base. So same scenario, back and forth, empty cars, loaded cars, one direction or the other.
So you are allowed to park as long as you want, but economically, probably it's not in your interest to do it.
Correct. Yeah, we don't do it now anymore. And then you got security issues, you got vandalism issues. There's a lot of reasons why we wouldn't want to do it from business.
Now, I'll add an extra dimension to that though, because I don't think we have a siding along here. A siding, you've got your major line, right? That's your throughput line. And then in the railroad industry, there's a siding. There's a switch, it comes off, and then there's siding, and then it comes back into your main line. A siding is there for train passing. We don't have the volume here to need that. We don't have trains that need us to park while one goes through. We do have some sidings out here, but they're further to the south. And if they're not used for passing trains, right now, with the way the economy is, there's a lot of sectors that rail cars are not moving. And where do you put a rail car if it's not moving? You got to put it somewhere. And so you try to find a siding, and it may be parked there for 6 months. Now, I think the community that we're talking with here, that's not going to be in your backyard, but maybe a mile down the road, there's some cars that are stored. You got to put them somewhere.
Blue shirt.
Another blue shirt. So the spur that crosses at Ventura Road is the most direct route to our beach area. And that route is the most direct route for our police, our fire, paramedics, and Gold Coast ambulance. During the summer, there are a lot of rescues and emergency issues that happen down at our beaches. Summer crowds come out and so forth. Does G&W have any sort of record or method for communicating with first responders, maybe via GPS, or do you radio communication to let them know where the train's at and so forth? Because what I'm hearing, if it's a very slow speed, could be 5 minutes or so, and minutes in a rescue situation could be very fatal. So what is your policy? What's your safety is a big issue, so how do you ensure the safety of not interfering with first responders?
That's a good question. It's really not our procedure, it's their procedure. So we don't have any communication like that. But in their policy and in their procedure, and this is, I know this because I do training with them, emergency response training and staged accidents. If they're going to an incident or accident and they make a turn and they see a railroad crossing blocked by a train, whether it's moving or stopped, they make the decision on their own. They have the alternate routes. They do that all on their own. And that's their call. And that happens at all of the crossings all over the place.
But
Should
being that
they
this
wait
was
or
so-
should they go to plan B, or route B, or route C?
So my suggestion would be, though, being that this is so minute and planned, it would seem it behoove you to have that communication to a dispatcher, at least a main dispatcher, and saying, we have train activity, be aware. You know, we expect to be this such time. I mean, I think if you want to be have a safe record, be good citizens in our community, I think that'd be a very good gesture.
Yeah, if these guys are gonna publish their schedule, then the first responders would have that published schedule, right?
Yeah, but I'm sure you're not going to be able to publish a schedule very far in advance.
I think they will. I think they will.
If I might, it kind of gets back to our problem we had, or challenge with Channel Islands Boulevard. It's the length of the number of cars, because you do have an alternate route to get to the beach at Surfside Drive on both sides, right? And you want to make sure that you're not going to be blocking both sides of Surfside Drive. And so this kind of comes down to, I think it's a cooperative agreement. I don't know if there's any regulation that says you can't have 100 cars that would effectively block both points of entry into the beach area. So again, I look at this as sitting down and working out the mechanics on that kind of issue. Is that?
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take 2 more questions, and then what we'll do is that these guys are willing to stick around, okay? And you can walk up and ask if you have additional questions. So I see a hand's been up there a long time, and I see that a hand's been up here. So, and then I commit that they'll stick around, they'll answer your question, they'll answer everybody's question. So go ahead.
Well, let me just say that first, I feel a little bit misled on a couple of counts. My husband and I bought Anacapa homes 2 years ago, and we were assured that the train only went through once a year. So that's really a frustrating experience for us. Also, I feel misled because you had mentioned, or both of you had mentioned, that you were being very honest and transparent. The idea that less trucks on the road meant less emissions and pollution and so on. And now we're finding out that actually it's to bring in bigger cargo in, so it might not mean really less trucks on the road. That's one thing. The other thing that I just want to mention is that you mentioned in your flyer here, and it was also posted, that there would be beautification and landscape around the tracks. So I guess my question would be, what plans do you have for that? So at least if we have to look at these tracks and the trains, how that might improve the look of the community. And as he mentioned, are you open to having any citizens, community members, to sit with you and discuss ideas for improving that landscape along?
The one point on the trucks, if you're running a rail, you're not running a truck, so it's going to be less trucks.
That's not what he basically said.
Just increasing business.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not going to be running it on trucks.
Well, I feel like that,
So,
to me, and
and we
It's
are.
gonna go somewhere though, right? If it's not this community, it would be some other community.
And
And it's the business dynamics that would work that out.
Right, and it's not going to be on it won't be on a truck. But we also, in terms, as I said, I think at the beginning of my presentation, there is a big push by the regulators to move to rail transportation.
Right.
And in our strategic planning, we are definitely looking at that. We'd like to take the 200 trucks off the road that are with the fertilizer company. We would like to do that. So there's a lot of mechanics to be worked out in that has to be cost competitive, has to be safe and efficient, all these things. But that's part of our strategic plan, is supporting our fertilizer company with rail. So that would reduce, that's the huge truck impact is the fertilizer
And
business.
the other thing is that we know, at least for 2016, 9 months left in the year, that we can expect, 4 times, there's only been 1, so 3 more. There's been no assurance for the future, and I know that, the idea is, well, we can't really say it depends on business, but then there's that concern about deepening the harbor, and then there being more business. And, a successful company that owns 121 railroads across the world it's hard for me to envision that you can't really tell us what we can expect after 2016.
Anybody in here know what can happen with the economy beyond this
You know
point?
strategic plan then?
Well, you wouldn't have bought unless you knew there was money to be made.
Well, we're here to serve the
I'm not
railroad and the
asking for a
community.
definite number, but some sort of idea.
Well, we run 4,000 carloads now. I mean, I can throw out a number and I don't know what would stick, but let's say it doubles.
You mean to 8,000?
Sure.
Carloads at 8,600?
Sure, I mean, it could, right?
Yes.
So, are we prepared right now to run double the volume that we currently operate under? The answer is no. Now, have we talked about what we could do if volumes doubled or tripled? Absolutely, we have. So, if you want to know what that is, really, the infrastructure's in the ground. It's not been abandoned. There's really, as I mentioned, no room to really grow the railroad because of the real estate. The only thing that we would be able to do would be to add crews, which would provide jobs, and perhaps buy an additional locomotive or two. And then it would be a matter of running certain areas on the existing property under its capacity. That's the best answer I can give you. Have we had those discussions? Absolutely. Have we had the discussions if volumes went to 2,000 carloads? Yeah. And you know, if volume gets to a point where it's so low, right? You know, we're here to provide transportation services. We hope that doesn't happen. There is a need, and it will just continue to grow.
And what about my thoughts on the beautification and landscaping that were on the flyer?
I guess the point that I made there is that the previous rail operator was not landscaping, there were weeds everywhere. They are responsive, and they're good land, you know, they'll do the landscaping, they will, it was a real problem with America, we were getting complaints all the time. So they've stepped up and they're manicuring their property, is what we know. It wasn't done before, and they're doing it now. They tried, like when they put the fence at the park, they tried to put an ornate fence up, not just some spiky fence that would be ugly for the community. They take initiatives like that, and if you have something that's a problem, you can talk about what that is.
Or as he was mentioning, you know, sitting
Yeah.
down together, it'd be great to also discuss, to me, that would be one more thing that I'd like to see on that agenda.
Okay, you got it.
And
So,
for clarification, Kristen Lauren from Supervisor Tappy Longs, my understanding is if an economic opportunity does come up, there will be further community meetings to manage, you know, what that would be, so it would bring more understanding about what the capacity will be.
I would love to be able to be part of any communication that I can legally, right? There are companies they don't want to disclose where they're looking at. And we have to sign letters of confidentiality not to discuss that. So we will do everything we can to be good stewards in the community, have whatever discussions we can, but we will also honor our legal obligations whether we can or can't do that.
and then here we go.
Hi. You mentioned earlier that you guys are a common carrier, which means that you are obliged to carry whatever cargo that a contractor assigns you to. Does this include hazardous material?
Yes.
So hazardous material could conceivably be going through our neighborhood.
There's no state laws, there's no federal laws, there's no community laws that say that cannot happen. We perform our common carrier obligations according to the law.
You have no discretion in it? What if you, as a railroad operator, said, we don't like this, we feel nervous about you wanting to take radioactive waste?
Then we could get sued for not providing common carrier obligations. So what our stand is how can we do this the most effective, safest way to do it? Because keep in mind, we do not want to have an accident with that product. We will do everything we can to make sure it moves safely and effectively, but we're obligated to do it Again, if we see something unsafe or an obstacle there that would cause concern, we have to step up and address that.
All right, so with that, I appreciate you all coming out. I know you have a lot of questions. If anyone wants to stick around, please, we'll